Meanwhile, President Biden is holding on to hope that his massive social spending and tax bill still has a future, despite Senator Joe Manchin saying he's a no. Watch.
So did Senator Manchin break his commitment to you?
Senator Manchin and I are going to get something done. Thank you.
This comes as Senator Manchin has offered some insight on some key changes that he wants for the Build Back Better legislation. Manchin said that the bill should focus on no gimmicks. He's talking about rolling back the 2017 Trump tax cuts, but that's already happening because Biden's plan raises taxes for most people. He's also talking about extending the child tax credit. Right now, there is a child tax credit that is in place for 1 year. That is a gimmick because the Democrats want that in for the full size of and time frame of the bill, which is 10 years. Joining me right now is Tennessee Senator, Senate Foreign Relations Committee and Banking Committee member Bill Hagerty. Senator, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thanks very much for being here. Merry Christmas to you, and we hope that you're doing well. What do you think Joe Manchin's thinking is? Now, I know Kristen Sinema does not want to see higher taxes right now. She's been vocal about saying it's not the time to raise taxes on people. What are the issues around taxes regarding Joe Manchin? Do you know?
I agree with Kirsten Sinema. This is not the time to be raising taxes on America. And what the Biden program does is take the most targeted sorts of taxes that will single out individuals, tiny cuts of taxes that will harm specific sections of the population, but they're going to have broad-based effects because what they're doing essentially is attacking job creators. They're going to make it harder to form capital here in America. They're going to shove more jobs offshore. They're going to make it less profitable to invest here, which means that companies will make the decision to invest elsewhere. Since 2017, America has been the most ideal place in the world to invest capital. That's why we've seen our GDP growth double, more than double, other GDP growth rates in most major nations. What Biden wants to do is kill that. He wants to make America less competitive, less attractive. That's what these policies would intend to do. It's going to be devastating to America in the long run. The people that they're targeting in these tax cuts will vote with their feet. And I think what we'll see is just much lower economic activity. We'll see a lot of, again, aggressive tax planning underway to try to deal with this. At the same time, we've got massive inflation, Maria. Inflation that's raging at levels we haven't seen since New Coke was introduced back in 1982. That's a pernicious tax that's attacking every American. Everyone's paying this tax right now. And we've not seen taxes at this level. We've not inflation at this level for 39 years.
And the White House is trying to explain it away. Ground beef is up 14% year over year. Regular gasoline is up 60% year over year. And yet Jen Psaki the other day said that it's corporate greed, Senator. She said that it's the meat conglomerates raising prices, has nothing to do with their wild, out-of-control spending. Do you think anything happens with this Build Back Better bill in the new year? Because I know that Chuck Schumer is continuing to push that he wants to jam a vote on the floor.
Joe Manchin has said that they don't have his vote. It's a 50-50 Senate. You've already got 50 Republicans that are against this bill, 51 now with Joe Manchin. There are 51 senators that are against this bill. At best, and I'm saying at best, Chuck Schumer has 49. I think actually other Democrat senators that don't want to see this either. I think what we're seeing coming from Chuck Schumer right now is two things. One is anger. He'd hoped to get this done. He'd hoped to get it done earlier this year, during the year. He'd promised Joe Biden that he would do it. But what he's doing is he's kowtowing to the far left of his party because Joe Biden himself is worried about being primaried by the far left in his party. That's what's driving this behavior. It's the far left that have pulled their party so far off center that they've lost track with the American public. When you poll the American public, they don't want what's in this bill. Indeed.
Well, it's like you make such a good point because we're showing you these new Fox Business polls, and over again, it shows that voters do not want this agenda. Voters do not want the performance that Joe Biden is selling. And as a result, you would think that this White House says, well, let me listen to voters. Let me listen to the American people. Let's push it back. Let me maybe change this bill.
Yes.
But that's not what we're hearing. So you say it's the pandering to the extreme left. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez claims she knows what's good for this country. Is that why they keep pushing this through? And is there any chance that this comes to a vote in January?
I've got to believe that's what's causing it, Maria. I think what Joe Manchin did is he listened to the voters of West Virginia, who sound very much like the voters of Tennessee. They don't want this bill. They don't want more fuel poured on this inflationary fire. They don't want to see their health care. They don't want to see their child care socialized. They don't want to see the fossil fuel industry devastated. They want to see America thrive again. You've got AOC and the squad who live in small, very discrete areas of the United States, trying to push their policies, their left-wing policies, onto America, and they're threatening people like Joe Schumer, who are concerned that they might be primaried by her.
Yeah, Joe Manchin obviously is saved us from socialism with his no vote on Sunday. Let me bring in Jonathan Madison, who's with me this morning. Senator, hold on. Jonathan, go ahead.
Yeah, Senator, you mentioned Senator Joe Manchin and how he's not just a yes vote on this bill for obvious reasons. I had a question. Senator Manchin said vehemently that these intimidation, these tactics, these threats by the Democrats, his Democratic colleagues, they've been attempts to coerce him to vote one way or not on the bill. He also mentioned that the White House alluded to similar tactics. Just in terms of that, I mean, what kinds of threats, right, is he actually referring to? And by the way, the White House actually came forward and said, he should honor his commitments, right? His commitment should be the American people, his constituents. But what kinds of threats, if you could speak to those briefly, is he referring to?
Well, sure. When the White House singles Joe Manchin out, it's like putting a hit on it. We've seen the footage.
That's right.
They attack him where he lives. They're waiting for him when he comes from his home. He lives on the waterfront there in Washington. They've blocked his car. They've swarmed him. They've done the same thing to Kyrsten Sinema. They've locked her into her school where she teaches on the weekends. They've tracked her into the bathroom. This harassment has gone on and on. It's physical threats. It's harassment not only to them, it's to their families. They've gone in and ruined a wedding where Kristen was presiding. They will stop at nothing to harass and harangue. And this canceling concept, the way that they will go after people that disagree with their ideas, it's really unsettling. And I don't think Joe Manchin is going to stand for it, not one bit.
Well, you're right. I mean, what is this, a dictatorship? What is going on here that we have to face these mobs and this bullying activity because you don't agree with what the extreme left is saying? It's absolutely disgusting, and somebody has to make a call and put an end to this. Now, I know that the Senate passed legislation last week with unanimous consent to ban imports from China's Xinjiang region, speaking of bullies, over the concerns of the use of forced labor. Senator, you co-sponsored this bill with Senator Marco Rubio. Tell us about it, and do you think that we are, in fact, going to get to corporate America to make sure they understand the genocide taking place and to take the dollar signs out of their eyes to sell to 1.4 billion people and start doing what's right?
Indeed, I do. Indeed, I do, Maria. The Trump administration in early July of this year named the Xinjiang region, named China as committing genocide in that region against those people. The Biden administration agreed right early on, as they came into office, but have done very little about it. But the Congress has taken action now. I applaud Marco Rubio for his leadership. I was happy to join him in this. We now have bipartisan support. We have passed this legislation. I expect Joe Biden to sign this legislation into law and to put this into effect. We're already reaching out to Secretary Raimondo at the Commerce Department to put those entities on her entities list, these companies that have actually been misusing this type of labor, violating these rules, and not allow American companies to work with those entities. We're going to have to take specific action, targeted action, and we can do that.
Is she going to do that, though, Senator? Because doesn't Gina Raimondo have her own conflicts of interest as it relates to China? Her husband works for a company that's backed by the CCP.
We're going to put her in a tough situation. We're going to call on specific companies to be sanctioned, and she's going to put them on the entities list or explain why.
Okay. Senator, we'll be watching. By the way, are they still dropping off illegal migrants in Tennessee?
As far as we know, they are. They've been doing their best to hide it. Senator Marsha Blackburn and I have been all over this, trying to get more clarity out of the Department of Homeland Security, out of DHS. They have been not forthcoming on this, but they continue to move people across the border. And I'll tell you this, Maria, the incidence of fentanyl overdoses and deaths continue to rise month after month. If that's not a surrogate, I don't know what is, but they are killing our kids here in Tennessee.
They sure are. They sure are. Sending fentanyl into this country. Absolutely disgusting.
Yes.
Not a peep from this White House on that. It's really stunning. Senator, it's good to see you. Merry
Indeed.
Christmas. Please come
Thank
back
you,
soon.
Maria.
And thanks
Merry
for
Christmas.
all of your support and working with us here on Mornings with Maria this year.
Thank you.
Senator Bill Hagerty in Tennessee.